Imagine yourself, you finished Undertale as well as Deltarune, and you are still hungry for more content. You want more stories, you want more dilemmas, you want to see how beloved characters are acting in different situations, and to your surprise, your wish is granted. The Undertale fandom has a lot of stories that tell the adventure of the Undertale cast after going up the surface, as well as so-called AUs, aka alternate universe story, that tells story where your beloved character are thrown into different situations. One AU where everything is edgy and one AU where everything is swapped. But when you start reading these stories, two things are immediately crystal clear. The stories are always the same, and sænz and sometimes pə-PY-rəs are always the only focus of these stories, and all the other beloved characters are completely irrelevant. You don't believe me? Well, dear viewer, let's play a game. And stop me if I'm wrong. In a story where Frisk and the monster are leaving the underground, all their worries are gone. Or so would you think. Because it turns out human hate monster, or Kara, returned. And only sænz and Frisk could do something about Kara's evil scheme. Because it turns out sænz knows everything about the resets, all the timeline, and is a scientist, and not just a hot dog seller. And he's also the strongest monster alive, which ignores all the canon facts. Sure, sænz seems like he remembers the resets since he mentioned the surface, and seems like to keep count of how often you died. But these are just assumptions, since sænz looks at your impression and assumes you are sick and tired of this conversation, or he remembers things when you as the player resets. But joke's on you! Every character remembers when you do a normal resets, but when you do a true resets after a genocide or pacifist run, everyone will forget what you did before, even sænz. And the scientist thinks, well, I do believe that he was once a scientist. I mean, his discussion with Alphys and their hinted relationship are proof of that, as well as the earthbound time machine in his garage. But everyone just, and I apologize now for my harsh word choice, Dick writes sænz knowledge. While he just only mentioned some topic in quantum physics, everyone just starts to assume that he's the smartest creature underground. I mean, for Christ's sake, he didn't even repair the time machine, and I'm still skeptical if it's even a time machine. I mean, I have seen more intelligent people in Undertale, and that was Alphys, who was able to make these immortal beings that can kill you, but just by injecting normal monster with just a bit of determination. I mean, for heck's sakes, she even created Flowey and built a bloody robot. Sure, Flowey was later one emotionless, bloody time traveler. And these monsters that are fused together, these amalgamation or whatever they are called, were seen as true monsters and were unfit in society. But that was the idea Toby Fox had about Alphys. She had so much guilt and responsibility on her shoulders that she once tried to unalive herself, and in most neutral endings where you kill Metatron or Undyne, she did exactly that. She unalived herself. The only real ending where Alphys didn't unalive herself was when you killed almost every monster underground. And instead of unaliving herself, she didn't want to give up and overcame her flaws just to stop us the player, while sænz tried to help her once again. But by making sænz the smartest monster underground, who can solve every problem in the world, Alpha's character arc as well as her own hardships and traumas aren't being treated with respect. In fact, most of the time, she will just be reduced to Undyne's nerdy otaku girlfriend, while she was able to build all these kinds of achievements while sænz just laid around and did nothing, and couldn't even repair a time machine while Alphys created a bloody time traveler who could load and save whenever he wanted. By mistake, by the way. But anyways, let's give the fandom the benefit of the doubt that they are capable of writing a sænz that is extremely smart, was a scientist, and has a huge IQ. Alright? Let's just imagine that. Well, you don't even need to imagine it, because there are two stories that are filling that criteria. Let's just start with the okay one, alright? And that is Horrortale. Yes, you heard me right. Horrortale. let me just synapse this complete story of sænz, alright? Alright. So, when the core broke down, it seems like, it's not a big deal. Nothing really bad will happen. That at least was sænz's mentality, because it didn't affect him. It didn't affect Snowdin. And it didn't affect his brother. But one day, when he was going to the bar, he saw how it affected his friend Grillby, who, when he didn't eat magic food, he can't keep his fire form and will burn alive. Because of that traumatic experience, sænz realized that he couldn't be lazy anymore and decided to get back on his science field once again and return to the core and gave Undyne, the new queen, a new plan of how to repair the core. This idea was actually a good one, and it seems like everything was going to be okay. But Alphys was at least a little bit skeptical. I would even go so far and say that she was jealous of how much an impact sænz did into repairing the core, as well as helping Undyne repairing the underground and becoming a more reliable source than she was. But she ignored these jealous feelings because Undyne needed more and more help, because the repair of the core always took longer than expected and more people died, and Undyne couldn't do anything about it. It even got so bad that Undyne considered unaliving herself by jumping down the waterfall and therefore ending her life. But Alphys couldn't allow that because, well, Alphys loved Undyne, yada yada yada, and told her that there is another plan of repairing the core, which is stealing sænz's eyes, which have a lot of magical property. Undyne was against this idea, but later on agreed to it after sænz had the idea of destroying the core and just rebuilding it, and therefore is sure that a lot of more people would starve to death. Undyne was against this idea and so tried to take sænz's eyes with force without killing him. But sænz, who was really exhausted because he couldn't sleep and always overworked himself to death to find a suitable solution to repairing the core, but couldn't find any single one into repairing the core, just broke down and started killing everyone around him. He took away Undyne's eye, he killed all the guards around him, and in the end was stopped by Undyne and Alphys' combined power. But sænz wasn't done. He was just unconscious and returned, destroyed the core, and therefore the only hope of ever getting magic food, and doomed the whole underground, as well as ensuring that Alphys will go mad. Both main character traits of both characters are being respected. Alphys' insecurity, Alphys' want to make something better, and also her not wanting to fail once again and being ready to do everything that is necessary to repairing the core and ensuring monster kind safe, as well as her want to protect her lot. But we also see how sænz is stressed out by all the pressure and hopes and dreams of the underground, and finally after so long start caring once again, as well as his want to help his brother and the resident of Snowdin. In fact, both of these characters were one and the same coin, if you want, because both of them broke down and became mad. Sænz became mad because he felt betrayed by his friend, and Alphys became mad because once again she failed to help the underground, and now all hope is lost and it's all her fault once again. But instead the fandom doesn't concentrate on that factor. In fact, they only concentrate how evil Undyne and Alphys were, ignoring what sænz did, because in their eyes sænz is perfect, sænz is victim. He only tried to do the best, while ignoring that Undyne and Alphys also try to do their best and trying to help monsterkind as a whole. But Horrortale will later on be discussed in this video. Let's just return to another topic, and that topic being inverted hate and their representation of sænz's intelligence. But before I will tell you that story, I will give you a spoiler warning, because that story only appears at the third of the story. But I will only explain it briefly, as well as putting the link down in the description so that you watch this video by yourself. So sænz was the assistant of Gaster in this unit, but after Gaster did an experiment that was guided by his own wish of getting monsterkind out of the underground, Gaster didn't consider the risk of destroying the whole underground and killing every monster. And almost exactly that happened. So sænz, who saw that possibility, needed to stop the machine, and by that, Gaster pulled down into the void. Everyone told him that he did what he had to do, but sænz couldn't live with the guilt of killing Gaster, and he wanted to be the new head scientist because he wanted to bring Gaster back from the void. But by spending day and day in the lab, he completely ignored his brother pə-PY-rəs. Every day was just another reality check that sænz wasn't as smart as he thought, and that he couldn't repair the machine. And at the same time, he actually became a mentor figure for Undyne and taught her all about different kinds of science and answered all her anime-related questions like if science could build a giant robot. And in the end, after sænz was finished teaching Undyne everything he knew about science, she taught pə-PY-rəs everything she knew about science, and together they became the most smartest people in this universe, far succeeding both sænz and Gaster, showcasing once again that his time as a scientist are done and that the future is in safer hands because of these two. And after teaching Undyne, he lost his meaning and couldn't as well as wouldn't want to face his past as the head scientist, a time where he couldn't help the man he so admired and a place where he was always reminded of what a failure he was. And so he found once again his meaning by joining the Royal Guard and developed responsibility and love for the Royal Guard, who basically saved his life by giving sænz a new meaning in life as well as a new outlook in life, besides of course taking care of pə-PY-rəs. And because of that, he owns the Royal Guard a great deal. He stays there and works his butt off and ranks as one of the highest in the Royal Guard, and that helped him start to forget. But even then, there was still a bit of doubt and regrets that was nagging on sænz's mind. And worst of all, he doesn't talk about his emotion with his brother or any of his friends, just in the hope that if he wouldn't talk about this incident, that he wouldn't be faced once again with all his failures and doubt in the past. And maybe, just maybe, all his problems would just disappear if he just ignores them. But that of course can't happen. And sænz in the end realizes that he needs to talk to someone and decides to tell pə-PY-rəs all that has happened and why he has quit his job as a scientist, overcoming his own pride, overcoming his own fear. I'm just saying, one character could really learn from sænz in this scenario. I'm looking at you, Sonny, looking at you, as well as you, Basil. This not only gives us a more interesting version of sænz, but also gives us as the reader a new life lesson of opening up to someone, not let our pride or mistakes control us, and maybe taking a new step in a new field and finding a new meaning in life by just starting once again new. Sure, I simplified sænz Inverted Fate storyline a bit, because it's more complex than that, but that is why you should actually read Inverted Fate. Link is down in the description for the complete comic, because that's a good journey that you won't regret. Maybe some of you would stop saying that Inverted Fate is just a clone of Underswap, but still, some of you will just say, let's ignore all of these opportunity and possible stories and say sænz has an IQ of 69,000, the smartest man alive, and Elphys is just the dorky girlfriend of and just ignore her whole role as well as sænz's whole role in the Undertale canon universe, because we want IQ 69,000 sænz. Speaking of ignoring their roles in the canon, let's talk about the fact that sænz is, in the eyes of the fandom, the strongest monster underground. This is wrong. In fact, there exists a far more powerful being who is able to stop a player from using mercy or reacts when you tell this monster that you died over and over again. And that is Asgore. Asgore is a monster who is seen as the strongest monster underground, and he is the only hope of stopping the human. In fact, sænz was just a wannabe jock, while Asgore was a bloody king who, like Elphys, wanted to die, so he fought not to win but to die. Asgore was also a kind and fair ruler in the underground who would dress up as Santa and give every hit underground present, and would always visit his subjects and would train Undyne in person. But once again, making sænz the most powerful creature who knows what's up and the only one who cares, results only into the fandom ignoring Asgore and his role, as well as his effort in the canon universe. Handplates did it so that sænz and pə-PY-rəs were way too young to do anything, and Asgore became like a father. In Undertale, Asgore took over the role of a loving father who maybe didn't understand what his child is going through, but was still ready to help his child. But even the Undertale after stories are dominated by sænz's opinion, are nothing against the dominant force that sænz is in other AU, aka alternate universes story. Well, listen up. Not only are AU stories 80% of time the same story, it's only, and I mean only, focused on sænz and sometime on pə-PY-rəs or the person that will take sænz's role. And when that happens, this person will just become a sænz reskin. I mean, look at Underswap pə-PY-rəs or Storyshift Terra. In OG Underswap, sænz became pə-PY-rəs reskin number 2, and pə-PY-rəs became sænz reskin number 2 for no real reason or explanation, unlike Inverted Fate. In Storyshift, Terra takes the role of sænz and starts making a lot of jokes, something our OG Terra wouldn't do, especially not the fandom version. And speaking of Fandom Storyshift, sænz takes in this AU Asgore's role and copycats Asgore's responsibility and outlook as well as doubts and suicidal thought within him, where he becomes just Asgore reskin number 2. This wouldn't make any sense. So let's take a look at an AU that is right. And don't worry, no, I will not mention Inverted Fate. I will mention this Storyshift Reboot, a rather fun but yet uncompleted story that leaves you looped. This is a discussion of how Storyshift made a better version of Storyshift sænz. In the Storyshift story, sænz and pə-PY-rəs take the role of the king, the prince, where pə-PY-rəs is prince and sænz is the king. This didn't happen because the writer said, hey, that would be funny, and just ignored the consequences that could have come with such a decision by making sænz just a reskin of Asgore. For you see, unlike normal Undertale, after the war, the old king was seen as unfitted, and for a long time there wasn't a ruler. Until sænz came up and said, we need like a ruler and stuff. And at that point, he was made the new king, pə-PY-rəs the new prince, start living in the ruin. Not because he wanted to be exiled, but because he wanted to give the monster that lived in the ruins a new hope. But sometimes later, some monster regretted that they choose sænz as the new king because of sænz's policy of what happens when a human falls down. Because unlike being killed, they should be living among them. And since humans live around 80 plus years, monsters need to wait 80 plus years until the human dies and they get their soul. So a rebellion started and a cult has formed. The so-called Solar Warrior that would hunt down humans. And they were rather affected at that. When pə-PY-rəs once adopted a child named Justine, pə-PY-rəs was forced to send this human out of the ruins and send it to sænz, where Justine started to live but was later killed by one of these rebels. There was another child pə-PY-rəs would adopt, but this would be best covered in his own Fandom pə-PY-rəs video or even his own Storyshift Reboot pə-PY-rəs lore video. But let's focus on the facts that these rebels have caused on this AU. As you may know, in Storyshift, Kara takes the role of sænz. And as you also may know, Kara is a human. And you see, because of these rebels, Kara need to live her life in constant fear that her brother, father, and mother are in danger of these rebels. And because of that, Kara needs to sleep in a cave to avoid being found. They can only leave sometimes the cave, and when they do that, they can be only seen by their family or the royal guard. But outside that circle of trust, everyone must think that Asriel only imagines Kara as his imaginary friend, and that Kara doesn't even exist. Kara can be officially be labeled as Asriel's sibling. Because of that, Kara becomes rather depressed and even suicidal, where Asriel always tries to make Kara feel wanted. But Kara has recently a harder time believing that. Or to keep it in layman's term, Kara is a fusion between Undertale Kara and Basil from Memory. I mean, Kara even used flower magic. I would say that's quite a change, a repressing one at that. At least it's a better story than what 80% of the Undertale AU fandom is coming up with. Am I right, lads, or am I right, lads? You are right, lads. Speaking of lads, remember if Undertale was realistic and how funny sænz was there? Well, make something that resembles a funny sænz and you get fangirls who are ready to say how that could never happen because sænz remembers all 69 resets. Because of these fangirls, we can't have a parody of a favorite skeleton. Like, I just want to see sænz shooting some rocks, as well as drinking so much alcohol and becoming a best lad for the general's child. Is that so much to ask for? Like, damn. But no, that would be too repulsive to just simplify or flanderize one character trait for a simple parody that shows the flaw in this Undertale. Like, why isn't Riz justified to kill Elpens? Why isn't he allowed to speak out the bullshit and hypocritical action of these monsters around him? And what does it mean to be nice? Is it to be a little bitch or a complete liar? And sænz was the hypocrite character that would ignore all these questions just to ensure that the general child would beat the game without killing someone, while he still killed people without a reason, showcasing that hypocrisy of monster kind and their judge, as well as what their priorities really are in the game, while still making it extremely funny, like for example, sænz's ex-wife's jokes. But no, that is too repulsive and oversimplifies things. Let's just make a sænz that eat people and kill them while laughing and sim for him like Jeffrey Dahmer. That is self. Speaking of such character, let's talk about these sociopathic sænz for a minute. And let me just say right now at the front, just because these characters have a tragic backstory, feel bad for their action, or look, I don't know how this is possible for some of you, look sexy in your eyes, doesn't mean that they have a pass for everything. That also doesn't mean that they can kill more and more just because they are sad boys. For example, one of the most beloved psychotic sænz is Horrortale, to be more specific Fandom, who is a completely different person from the canon verse. In the comic, Horror could be seen as a fallen hero who waits for everyone to just fail like he did and become the same monster he has become, because he can't stand the guilt that his own emotion and outburst of emotion are the reason that the underground is a living hell. So he makes Eliza's life a living hell by commenting what a hypocrite she is. But the fangirls couldn't and wouldn't want to see Sænz as a villain, which in my opinion would be the best option for this AU. But whatever, this AU will get his own video, right? And because of these fangirls, Horrortale is now seen as an anti-hero, weeds people, and a strategy. Let's give it a redemption arc without knowing how to write one, so we just show how evil Undyne was, which she wasn't, and manipulate the emotion of the viewer just to redeem him, so that he can once again justify to kill people and cook them because it is so quirky. And don't get me started on Killer or Dust. Dust was a Sænz that I actually kind of respected when he was written as a regretful soul that wanted to escape the loop of reset. Note, the fandom wrote this motivation out of the canon that Sænz remember resets and the wish to continue life, to start caring once again. And when Kara gave up, he was all alone, needing to face the consequences of his action. And he only wished to turn back time to redeem himself. Well, dear viewer, that could have happened when we didn't ignore the core of his storyline, where Dust came with Thor and go around AUs to help people in need and stop evil Frisk, as well as help Sænz and every other AU he came across. But no, we need an edgy Sænz who wants to redeem himself but doesn't do anything to redeem himself. Speaking of edgy Sænz, remember Fell Sænz? Well, let's make him angry all the time, have a defective relationship with his brother, and say that the only explanation of why this is happening is because the underground is edgy. Why is that? I don't know. Okay, you know what? The Underfell animation from this guy, I don't know this guy right now, did a bloody great job of making exactly that what the fandom want. An edgy but also extremely dangerous Underfell Sænz, who was made this animation and storyline an ice-cold killer who doesn't care if his brother may get hurt, because Sænz's only goal is to get a human soul and get all powerful. And he was the bloody menace. He was even scarier than Horrortale Sænz, because you know Underfell Sænz didn't play around. He would wait in the forest and would strike at you at any moment and would hunt you down until the end of the world, like Black Spider-Man did to Shocker. And because of Sænz's menace nature, he was respected all around the underground, especially Snowdin. But nah, we can't have a villain Sænz. Let's make him a bad boy, or a tragic boy, or a horny boy. You know, the Sænz that loves getting on a leash. In conclusion, listen, I really don't want to shit on Sænz, okay? I enjoy Sænz's character in the canon and most of fandom versions. I really do. But we can all agree that some versions of Sænz are not well written, and I only wanted to point that out. And only when we acknowledge this, we can actually change. I mean, if you're ready to change Sænz's character forever, maybe consider reading these following books. Save the Cat writes a novel, character arc, and How to Write a Bloody Good Novel. Link to these books are down in the description, as well as all the fanfiction I just mentioned. But anyways, that was it for today. And if you want more of these fandom videos, maybe consider liking and subscribing to my channel so that I will know if you want more content, because I would be more than willing to do so. But for now, I wish you all a bloody good day, and I believe in you, so start believing in yourself. Bye.